ESPN in Bristol. So here's a note from Andrew Marchand, the New York Post, who does the podcast with John Orand of the Sports Business Journal. This was really interesting about ESPN has emerged as the leading candidate to be Pat McAfee's new home as he is moving closer to leaving FanDuel, $120 million deal with FanDuel. The Post has learned now McAfee is worth all he wants. If he wants $120 million, he gets it. Now, whatever ESPN offers him on that remains to be seen. But a follow-up to that from Bob Thompson, if this is true, I guess we can eliminate ESPN as the entity wary of announcing any kind of a Pac-12 deal after what the Washington State president said last week, and Kirk Schultz, we discussed that yesterday. In the face of layoffs, the process of elimination pretty much makes it Amazon. As Apple, other candidates have not announced any layoffs.
Yeah, so, Apple hasn't announced any, not to mean that they won't have any, but they seem to kind of come through most of these things really well, considering that their, overall net, company worth is like the GDP of better than every country in Africa, but like 5. So they're kind of untouchable. But, Amazon with 9,000 layoffs. So that's going to be curious if it is, in fact, Amazon, because, like I said yesterday, I don't think ESPN is all that worried about it. And I really don't think that Amazon's really all that worried about either. But, what the 9,000 layoffs that Amazon had, all right, you could have probably saved that money back by, the CEO taking a cut himself, but that's never going to happen. So I don't live in the world of fairy tales and rainbows. But I don't know why they're all of a sudden worried about optics now at Amazon
or ESPN for that matter.
I don't think that they really are. At least that's what we kind of talked about yesterday. Is I don't think that we all really bought into that too much from Kirk Schultz. I think there's certainly some level of reasoning behind that why that makes sense is, there's layoffs going on, but I don't think we were all sitting here going like, oh, yeah, that's the only reason why this hasn't happened was because, it's just the layoffs. That's what's creating the delay. No, absolutely not. We know it's not just that simple. There's more to it than that. And, I guess if you're trying to play process of elimination, Bob chiming in there, I think adds some more weight to that as well, that he – is saying that or coming to that same conclusion, knowing what all he knows about the way that TV works. And, it's, again, process of elimination to a certain extent. But that is of interest, certainly. And if that's the case, then, I guess scratch one off or, eliminate one and let's move on to the next. And Amazon Apple would make a lot of sense because of – what they're trying to do in streaming, because of the tech factor that's been pointed to so often as well. And it's hard for me to believe that Apple or Amazon are worried about being looked at as like too cutthroat or too bloodthirsty or whatever by, I would think, announcing a big TV deal is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
And not a bad thing because, again, who's getting pissed at you? The people you already fired? Is everybody else going to, you know what? They just laid people off. I know they just announced the Pack, and I love the Pack, and I'm a Pack fan, but I'm not going to get it out of, of course you are. Of course, so I don't really buy that, and so we'll see if that, in fact, comes to into fruition. But, it certainly makes a lot of sense that would be the one you'd cross off the list. But then again, what was it just 2 days ago? It's like, no, ESPN's absolutely in it. So...
Yeah,
who do you want to...
It's like trying to grab fireflies in the summer night around the state of Texas.
I don't think that Kirk Schultz made that up. I do believe that one of those people may have told him that.
Oh, I'm talking more about the Dennis Dodd back and forth. ESPN's not in it. No. Yes, they are. And then all of a sudden... Wait a second. Here, no, maybe they're not.
But the layoffs thing meaning something to it, like that to me is something that one of the corporate suits at those entities said, well, we need to, we'll get around to really clarifying some more of this after we kind of get past this wave of layoffs. That's an excuse that they would have given to the Pack, and then he regurgitated out to people. But that doesn't, again, there are
believe what you want to believe.
So many things that they don't care about optically, ever.
It may have gotten them to where they are today in some ways.
So now all of a sudden, because you have layoffs again, you're going to wait on announcing something because really giving giving the Pac-12 money and the layoffs that you had are not necessarily related or unrelated. Like it's one of those things that's kind of nebulous.
Go back to Bob Thompson's response again. I think that we may be trying to read wrong here. If this is true, I guess we can eliminate ESPN as the entity wary to announce any kind of basically a relationship with the Pac-12. So because what they're saying with ESPN, they're not worried about optics. They never have been worried about optics. There was a concern. So this also might be, from according to what I'm reading into this, is Bob saying that, so don't say they're done, or maybe they're not done. They're not worried about it. In fact, if they get into a relationship with media, a deal with the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, I read that initially as, eliminate them. So, yeah, I read that wrong. But, yeah, I'll say
okay.
that I read that wrong initially, but yeah, I mean, it's like he said, the process of elimination, you're down to those two. Those two were the ones we started with. So it seems like through all of this, not much has really changed there. I am very interested in the ESPN piece because there was that back and forth that I pointed towards from just last week of Dennis Dodd saying they're not out or they're not in as the primary rights fee holders. Yes, they are, according to people on the other side of the aisle or whatever you want to call it. And Dennis stands by his report. I'm sure those people do as well. So they're involved, I'm sure, to some extent. But, yeah, you can go ahead and eliminate them as the one that's not pulling the trigger. But for Apple and Amazon to be wary of layoffs, causing them bad publicity, and announcing what should be a great thing, I don't really buy that either. But, yeah, I mean, 2 + 2 = 4. And so if you're looking at the numbers involved and the entities involved, then it would only seem to be that, yeah, it would be those two you would think that are I guess, the best candidates for that. But regardless, the situation really hasn't changed
at all.
And it's just more of a guessing game than probably ever before.
Mac Rose, Baylor AD, will join